back, everyone. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm your host, Steve Eisenhower. I'd like to thank you for tuning in again. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Paul versus Moses. This is going to be more than likely a part one of a multi-episode series. As you can see from the screen, Clouds of Torah, Davon Mays, good brother, good friend of mine. He's had some input on this. It's been a long time coming. This is only going to be the first, as I said, of probably many. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. Make sure to check that channel. Things have been hectic. Things have been really hectic lately for both of us. Lots of work going on. Families, life gets in the way. But we do have some content brewing for you guys. And we'll be back together soon. We both know that you enjoy our work together and like when we come together and bring content for one another. And yeah, so we're working on that, working on bringing you guys something sooner rather than later now that things should be slowing down. But before I get started, everyone, please hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, give me a big thumbs up, and check the description for any resource you may need, including my ebook, which has released. The link to the physical copies is in the description. Follow that link if you want to pick one up for yourself. Otherwise, just shoot an email to rediscoveringgod22@gmail.com, and that will be your easiest route to get the free ebook version. Okay, but let's get right into it. So, Paul versus Moses. Okay, so question for all the listeners. Where was the altar of incense located within the tabernacle or temple? So this is the basic premise that we need to assess. This is the basic question we need to assess as we open up this little introductory short video for Paul versus Moses. If you know this, then this is a very basic piece of Torah knowledge, where the incense altar was. And as we start moving forward, we're going to see that some of the most influential New Testament authors of the Pauline persuasion, whether it be Paul himself or a student of his, or someone of the Pauline school, someone of the Pauline line of thought, they didn't know this. So the reason I wanted to open this series up with this is because if you don't know these very basic things, how can we expect you to trust your theology, right? If you don't even know the layout of the temple, where you could simply just go back and look into the Torah itself, if you can't even get that right, why should we trust you on anything else? Because that means you just don't even have the most bare bones knowledge of Judaism. Right? Because this is something so easy to just find and make sure you're correct on before you write a book. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that if the most basic perfunctory sources, knowledge of the sources that you're trying to claim fulfillment of, if you don't even have the most basic understanding of those, everything after is moot, and it should really just be rejected. So let's move on. So this is the Pauline school's assertion. In Hebrews 9, 3 and 4, we see behind the second curtain was a section called the most holy place. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that so everyone's aware of that. So behind this second curtain was a section called the most holy place, which would be having the golden altar of incense and the Ark of the Covenant. So that's the Holy of Holies, right? So let me highlight that also, because there you see the incense altar. Okay. Having the golden altar of incense and the Ark of the Covenant, covered on all sides with gold, in which was a golden urn holding the manna, and Aaron's staff that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. So there you see in Hebrews 9, 3 and 4, they are making the assertion that the golden altar of incense is in the Holy of Holies, right? The most holy place, behind the second curtain. So according to the author of Hebrews, whether it be Paul or another individual of Pauline influence, as I said before, the golden altar of incense was located behind the second curtain, aka the veil, which separates the holy place and the most holy place, aka the Holy of Holies. Do the instructions given to Moses agree with this layout? Let's see. I'm sure from my prologue you could assume not, but let's check it anyway. So what does the Torah and Moses say? In Exodus 40, verse 21, and he brought the ark into the tabernacle and set up the veil of the screen and screened the ark of testimony as the Lord had commanded Moses. Okay, so if he's bringing the ark in, all right, if he's bringing the ark in, and then he sets up a veil, screened in, okay. So that's one room. That's the Holy of Holies. We know the ark is in the Holy of Holies. So as you can see, this is one room, right? And it's screened in by itself. Moses places the ark within the tabernacle and then surrounds it with the veil or the curtain, enclosing it by itself. This shows that as the tabernacle is erected, it is arranged outward. This is a very important point. The holiest of holies is first. Okay? The holiest of holies is first. And now we get to the next room, which is the holy place. So let's see what's in there. Verse 26 of the same chapter. He put the golden altar in the tent of meeting before the veil. Okay? So what does that mean? Before the veil. That means in front of. If the Holy of Holies is the innermost room, right? The innermost sanctum, as you would have in Latin. Then when we see that he puts the golden altar in the tent of meeting before the veil, which before it could mean in front of, right? When you, like, that's, I don't want to say it's not conventional English nowadays. It's just not utilized as much as it could be, right? So it really means in front of. So golden altar in the tent of meeting in front of the veil, and he burned fragrant incense on it, which is very clear that means that is the golden incense altar. So therefore we see that Moses was commanded to put the incense altar in the holy place, not the most holy place. Other furniture in this area include the golden candelabra, aka a menorah, and opposite from it, the table of showbread. So once again, we see the lack of Torah knowledge displayed by the New Testament authors. It is not the Word of God. In fact, such a blatant mistake is a product of negligence and a differing agenda. This is evidence to support the Pauline school's mission of severing humanity from the Mosaic covenant. Now, yes, I understand that only the Jews are bound by the 613 laws of the Torah, but we as Noachides, everyone check the description and grab the divine code, because what I'm about to say is mentioned in length in that book. That when the Torah was given at Sinai, there was also a reaffirmation of the 7 Noahide laws. So, because of Sinai, we as non-Jews are most certainly bound to the Noahide laws, and Jews are bound to the 613. So, what can we take away here? As I said at the beginning, this is going to be real short. This is actually the last point I wanted to make. This is the only point I wanted to make in this video as a little prelude to what's to come, but it's really just a point that there was, as I said, negligence. There wasn't a lot of care taken when these things were written. Archaeologically, the texts of the New Testament that we see compiled, there are numerous mistakes, and even if you go with the conservative point that only 50 mistakes actually make any difference in the text, that's still a lot. Especially when we see that the spelling errors and all this amounts to about multiple thousand mistakes, right? So it's quite important to maintain that there was clearly some negligence here. It says it's authored to the Hebrews. Now, if this is truly intended for that, if this was meant to go out to a Jewish audience, a non-Christian Jewish audience, one that had previously rejected Jesus, said no, he's not the Messiah, and this book was written as intended missions pamphlet, basically. Like, this was written to say, listen, your Hebrew scriptures foretell of Jesus, this is how and this is why. If a knowledgeable Torah Jew read this, they would laugh. I'm just going to say that now, because this is something so basic. This is something so perfunctory. As I mentioned, the tabernacle is laid out and assembled from the innermost outward. So you have the Holy of Holies, and then that's screened in. And then, like I said, as we read in Exodus 40, you then have the holy place, where the incense altar, showbread, and menorah are. That's the next area moving outward. So if you can't even get that right, okay? If you can't even get that right, we can't take anything else you have to say as legitimate. You can't even check yourself and make sure that you got a very basic point of how the tabernacle's laid out. How can we take your theology of Jesus, your assessment of the Hebrew scriptures from here on out, and the fact that you say that said Hebrew scriptures point to Jesus? If you can't even get this right, there's nothing else to be. There's no more conversation. Much less to say that this is the word of God and divinely inspired. So, as I said, it's rightly rejected. And I've also heard the argument from Messianics that the reason this is assembled this way is because it's talking explicitly about Yom Kippur. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't change anything, because the incense is taken from the incense altar in the holy place and taken into the most holy place. So, these little jabs and these little, I guess you could say, homilies or ridiculous assertions of how to rectify these issues, even they don't work, right? So just please, for a moment, understand what I'm saying. This is a very blatant issue, very blatant contradiction. It cannot be the Word of God. And because of this, Pauline doctrine and the doctrine of Hebrews, like I said, whether we agree that it's Paul or a student of Paul, etc., it's certainly Pauline. We just have to reject it, I'll hammer that on the head, that if you can't get the basics right, why should we expect you to get the deeply esoteric, hidden things correct? Right? So, yeah, short video, everyone. More to come. I want to keep it to this type of format, short, 15 minutes, and we'll take a singular issue and a singular topic and compile them all into one big series, and maybe at the end of it I'll make it one big video and re-release the whole thing for those of you who like long videos. But until next time, everybody, this was the Exodus Project. I'm Steve Eisenhower. We'll see you next time.